The Democrat Party doesn't seem to care so long as he opposes Donald Trump.
I will work with whoever the people of Maine elect, but I hope that they elect somebody that is going to stand up to this president.
So that guy has questions to answer, and that's what campaigns are for. If we do not get the votes, we will continue to have an out-of-control president.
This is going to be a pretty clear contrast in Maine between somebody who has spent his life protecting us versus somebody who seems to be protecting Donald Trump's corruption.
This comes as Platner leads Senator Susan Collins by 9 points in a recent poll. We reached out to Platner's office for comment, but we haven't heard back. We're still waiting for that one. Mark, I want to go to you on this. I want to start off with maybe the scandal, right? This guy's had so many scandals. We need the front and backs of the paper to keep up with him. Yep. I'm not sure this is even the worst of it, right?
Yeah.
I think folks don't really bat an eyelash anymore when there's infidelity or text messages, right? That's where we've gotten to in this political world, for better or worse. You know, it's not disqualifying anymore. I think there's a long list of other things that bother me more about this particular gentleman. Yeah. What I can't seem to figure out, and you followed this your whole career, how is he polling so much better than Susan Collins, who is not mega, right? She's about as vanilla of mega as you could possibly get. Yep. I understand polls are not always accurate, but explain to me why someone as problematic as that is doing as well as he is.
I can't really explain it, though I do know that Susan Collins tends to lose polls and win elections.
Okay.
So I don't think that this is dangerous for her. But think about this. His wife is disappointed, not in her husband sexting women, but she's disappointed in us for caring about it, right? And she's disappointed in people for exposing it for the voters to see. That's what she's disappointed in. I mean, that tells you a lot. I think it's great news for Susan Collins in that she couldn't have picked a better opponent. A guy, you know, a sexual deviant, cheating sleazeball with a Nazi tattoo is probably who you want to run against. But I think you're right, Tommy, which is that things that used to be obviously disqualifying are no longer obviously disqualifying. You just look at Jay Jones in Virginia, running for attorney general, chief law enforcement officer, who was threatening his fellow legislators in the legislature, saying he wanted one woman's children to die in their mother's arms. And he won, not just won, he won decisively 53-47, and the winning margin came from suburban women. I mean, if that is not, if Jay Jones can win an election in Virginia with suburban women after what he did, then, you know, I guess Platner can do or say anything or tattoo anything he wants on his body and be fine.
What you're saying is there is no moral floor on the left, and I think you're exactly right about that. Joe, I know you have a lot of thoughts on Graham Platner just in general. What's interesting to me is there have been a few Democrats, to their credit, who have come out and said this is not the guy. And they've even gone so far as to say if that means losing this opportunity and having a Republican, then so be it. I give them credit for that. But Democrats, by and large, we just saw the clips there. They're still standing by him. They're using the same thing that they said about Jay Jones, about, oh, well, he's got questions to answer. But they're not saying that anything that he's done is disqualifying or would qualify him to be in the position that he's running for.
Yeah, I'm going to do this backwards. Stick with me for just 1 second. So go through this list. So the Nazi tattoo, it was a skull and crossbones tattoo. And had I not gone to college, if I'd have just gotten out of the Marine Corps, I would have never known that that was a Nazi tattoo. Somebody might have pointed it out to me, hopefully, before I got it tattooed on my body. So when I hear that, I think about being on a white pleather couch in the back of the Harley Bar in Okinawa and getting my entire ribs tattooed, not knowing much about anything at 20, 21 years old. So, okay, maybe there's a story behind this tattoo I can forgive. And then we move on to what's the next thing. He talked crap about a Purple Heart recipient. Then I find out there's a whole Facebook group dedicated to criticizing this Purple Heart recipient because of how he earned it and the thing, disobeying orders and all this. I don't know if it's true or not, but okay, I can see getting into one of those Facebook groups and saying this guy's an idiot. Don't know I'd say what Graham said, but I also have buddies that say ridiculous things in dark humor in small circles. That's different than publicly. Okay, so then, you know, you said it publicly. But then the list just keeps going, and that's the problem. The stuff about the Porta-Johns and all that, like I've seen those same comments from men I respect. It's dark humor, but it belongs in small circles among people you love and respect that know how to take it. It doesn't belong on Reddit. It doesn't belong in the public sphere. And the last thing you should do is when you're caught doing it, hide behind the valor of your friends, which is what he did. He said, oh, I've got all kinds of friends with Purple Hearts. Well, okay, bro, good. You know, that doesn't excuse you from your bad behavior. You got to own up to it. If you're going to be the guy who campaigns on the fact that you had PTSD or you have PTSD and that shouldn't be disqualifying, then you have to own up to what that means. And what that means is you were in a bad place, you got to a better place. If you hadn't got to a better place, you don't need to be running for the Senate. You need to be looking for help. And we'd be happy to help you, the nonprofits I work at or work with, but just going out there being an a-hole for the purpose of being an a-hole doesn't get it done. And that's where he is. All these things pile up to bad character, bad decision making, and we don't need more of that in the Senate because, quite frankly, we got plenty of it there already.
Lydia, to that point, though, we know all of his baggage. I have not heard what he is going to do for his constituents. I know that he campaigns with Bernie. Actually, about him that I find so troubling is actually his policy positions of those we've heard so far. We haven't heard a lot of them because everything has been overshadowed by his personal issues. But I don't know what qualifies him to lead in the Senate of all places. And I don't know what part of him is going to make his constituents in Maine proud.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'll keep this short. I mean, I don't know enough about him. I was trying to figure out what he actually stands for, and what stands out more are all the things that we do know about him, which are extremely troubling. I find it troubling that his wife has to come out here on social media and offer some type of defense for him. Why she's in that position, I don't know. We clearly reached out to his office, as you just read in the intro. He has had the opportunity to explain this for himself, and why he's not saying anything, I think speaks volumes.
There might be a lot more to come.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.